Hey everyone, welcome back to the Longacres Finance channel, where we are always on the lookout for the best quality dividend stocks for safe, reliable, and growing dividend income. It's time to take another look at the best dividend kings. Last month when we looked at the dividend kings, we used 4 strategies for selecting a group of dividend kings to hopefully beat the average return of all the kings. Today we will find out how each of those strategies worked out, and I have updated the data so that we can make new picks for this month. Will the same companies stay in each portfolio, or will they be replaced by another dividend king? Stay tuned to find out. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And I encourage everyone to check out my Patreon if you're interested in sponsoring the channel and the additional benefits offered there. A link is in the description below. I will also leave a link to the last Dividend King video in the description. If you want a deeper explanation of the strategies we will look at today, you should check out that video. Okay, let's start off with the performance, and take a look at how each strategy did for its first month, and where they clock in compared to all the Dividend Kings. The 32 current Dividend Kings finished the month of July with a positive 1.71% return. There is one new addition to the list of Dividend Kings for this month, and that company is PPG Industries. I use the Dividend King list available on suredividend.com. Each month I compare my spreadsheet to their list and make any necessary changes. The website doesn't say exactly when PPG was added to the list, but I'm fairly convinced they were not in the list when I looked last month. It does state that the list was updated on August 3rd, so maybe that is when PPG was added. Either way, the additional company is a welcome sight, as now we have one additional Dividend King to choose from. On to strategy number 1. The best 8 Dividend Kings based on dividend yield and dividend growth, better known together as the Chowder rule. Here we are looking for the 8 kings with the largest Chowder number. And our 8 picks for the month of July were Hormel, Lowe's, Altria, Nordson, Stepan, SJW Group, Cisco, and Universal Corporation. SJW Group was the strongest performer from this bunch, picking up 8.89% last month. Nordson also had a decent month with a gain of 3.02%. Unfortunately, the other 6 companies had a rather poor month. Altria tacked on 0.76%, and the rest of the stocks all had negative returns. Hormel lost 2.37%, Lowe's fell 0.25%, Stepan fell 1.93%, Cisco shed 3.98%, and Universal Corporation had the worst return, losing 7.14%. Combined, these 8 stocks finished July with a negative 0.38% return, a pretty terrible start for the 8 Chowder stocks. Year to date, these 8 companies are performing rather poorly as well. They have an average gain of 8.76%, with Lowe's and Altria being the only 2 stocks that have decent gains this year thus far. One poor month isn't going to stop us from tracking this approach going forward. Let's take a look at the 8 best Chowder stocks for August. And the list remains unchanged. The same 8 companies still have the best Chowder stats for August. Cisco has the lowest Chowder number of 10.69%, but remains a good 0.5% above the next best stock, that is Lancaster Colony. So the same 8 Chowder stocks will have a shot to show us a better return in August. In addition to tracking the average monthly return for each strategy, I will also track how a buy and hold portfolio with an equal allocation will perform. Here's how a buy and hold approach for the Chowder stocks looks like for July. It assumes we would invest $1,000 equally split between all 8 companies. That's $125 per stock. And the ending market value for this portfolio at the end of July was $996.25, which equates to a loss of about $4. Not a terrible start, but also not the one we were hoping for. Before we move on to strategy number 2, I'd just like to announce that these videos will also be available as a podcast, so if anyone would prefer to consume this information via podcast, you can do that going forward. The podcast is titled The Best Dividend Stocks with Longacres Finance, and it's available on Google and Spotify for now. Hopefully it'll be added to Apple Podcasts in the near future as well. Okay, let's move on to strategy number 2. The 8 Dividend Kings that qualified for this portfolio in July were ABM Industries, Cincinnati Financial, H.B. Fuller, Lowe's, Nordson, Parker Hannifin, Stanley Black & Decker, and Cisco. And the best return of these 8 companies came from ABM Industries, that picked up 4.83% in July. Nordson gained 3.02%, H.B. Fuller picked up 1.86%, Parker Hannifin gained 1.6%, and Cincinnati Financial picked up 1.08%. The other 3 stocks all had negative returns. Lowe's lost 0.25%, Stanley Black & Decker fell 3.87%, and Cisco dropped 3.98%. The combined return for these 8 best Dividend Kings based on expected future earnings growth was 0.54%, a much better start than the Chowder picks we just went over. Year to date, these 8 companies are doing much better with an average return of 18.61%. The buy and hold portfolio for this strategy has an ending market value of $1,005.36 at month-end July, A solid start with a small modest gain. I went ahead and pulled updated analyst forecasts for expected future earnings growth, and there were a few changes, which means that our list of 8 best dividend kings will change for this strategy for the month of August. You may already see the changes on the screen here, but if not, let me tell you. Cincinnati Financial drops off the list and is replaced by Dover for August. The expected earnings growth rate for Dover has increased to 14.66%, pushing them up to 6th place amongst all of the dividend kings. Cincinnati Financial drops down to 10th place for August. They were also surpassed by Emerson Electric, with a forecasted earnings growth rate of 12.91%. That is a solid growth rate, however it wasn't enough to jump over Nordson, which rounds out the top 8 dividend kings, with a flat 13% expected earnings growth rate. Let's jump over to strategy number 3. And strategy number 3 is a combination of expected future earnings growth rate combined with current valuation. In case you have not seen the previous Dividend King video, in this strategy we are tacking on a return to fair value for each stock onto the expected earnings growth rate. The 8 Dividend Kings picked for this strategy in July were ABM Industries, California Water Service, H.B. Fuller, Lowe's, Parker Hannifin, SJW Group, Cisco, and Tootsie Roll. You can probably see a lot of overlap in all the strategies, but there are a few unique picks for each strategy. And the best return for this strategy in July came from California Water Service. The stock picked up 12.86% during the month. SJW Group also tacked on a nice 8.89% return. ABM Industries picked up 4.83%. H.B. Fuller was up 1.86%. Parker Hannifin gained 1.6%. Tootsie Roll picked up 1.42%. Lowe's had a negative return, losing 0.25%. And Cisco dropped 3.98%. Not a bad start, with 6 of the 8 picks here offering positive returns. The combined return for this strategy for July was 3.4%. Now this makes both the prior strategies look pretty weak. It's nice to see a strong return right out of the gate, but let's see how things shake out a few months down the road. Year to date, these 8 companies are doing pretty average. They have a combined return of 15.7%. The buy and hold portfolio would have seen our initial $1,000 investment grow to $1,034.04. A pretty solid start. There are 2 changes to this strategy for the month of August. Our 2 best performers from July, California Water Service and SJW Group, after their strong gains, both companies slide over to overvalued territory, in turn pushing their expected earnings growth plus valuation score down. California Water Service holds on to 8th place and stays on the August list, but SJW Group drops down to 16th place and falls off. Stanley Black & Decker takes their place, with an expected growth rate plus return to fair value of 12.28%. The other change for the month of August is Hormel jumping onto the list, in place of Tootsie Roll, that falls down to 11th place for the month. I think with this strategy, a higher than average turnover is expected, especially if we see large upside in the future. It's only expected that if a stock has strong gains, its future expected return will shrink, especially if we are factoring valuation into the equation. And finally, let's take a look at strategy number 4, the Quant strategy, where we take the 8 best dividend kings based on Wall Street analyst ratings. Our 8 dividend kings for July were ABM Industries, Black Hills Corporation, H.B. Fuller, Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, Lowe's, Parker Hannifin, and Stanley Black & Decker. The best performer of this group was Coca-Cola, with a 5.4% gain last month. ABM Industries came in second, with a gain of 4.83%. Johnson & Johnson was not too far behind, with a return of 4.53%. Black Hills Corporation tacked on 3.08%. H.B. Fuller picked up 1.86%. Parker Hannifin gained 1.6%. Lowe's, as we already have seen 3 times, lost 0.25%. And Stanley Black & Decker fell 3.87%. The combined return for this strategy was 2.15%. While that isn't as good as the prior strategy, it is significantly better than the first 2 strategies we looked at. The year-to-date return for these 8 companies is also average. They are up 15.78% after 7 months. Our buy and hold portfolio has a market value of $1,021.48 at the end of July. Not a bad start for this strategy either. I went ahead and updated all the Wall Street analyst ratings recently, and we have 2 changes to our list of the 8 best stocks for August. Parker Hannifin and Stanley Black & Decker fall in our rankings to 11th and 9th place respectively, and they are replaced by Emerson Electric and PPG Industries that move up to 6th and 7th place. Coca-Cola, the best performing stock last month, rounds out the top 8 stocks for August with a 4.03 analyst rating. They are not too far ahead of Stanley Black & Decker, that has a strong rating of 4 flat. I imagine there can be a decent amount of turnover for this portfolio in the future as well. Let's take a look at all the individual strategy returns side by side. Here we also have the average return for all the Dividend Kings in July, and that return was 1.71%. So two of our strategies, the expected earnings growth plus valuation, and the Quant strategy, start off beating the average Dividend King return. And our two other strategies, Chowder and the expected earnings growth, start off trailing the Dividend Kings. I'm curious to see how each of these strategies will play out over a longer period of time. If you guys have any other interesting approach to picking the best Dividend Kings, let me know and maybe we can tack it on here. Before we wrap up here, let's just take a quick look at some of the best Dividend King returns last month. The best return for July was the 12.86% gain from California Water Service. That was included in one of our portfolios. The second best return was from American States Water, that was up 11.01%. Unfortunately, they were not part of any of our strategies, and neither was the third highest return stock, which was Dover with a gain of 10.97%. Dover is part of one strategy for August, so we can see if it has more momentum left under its belt after a very strong month in July. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.